Some time ago, Carlos, or Tallan Pick as he's known on YouTube, sent me a whole pile of really nice dimple locks and Spanish goodness, and this cylinder here was one that I pulled out to have a play with first because I thought this would be one of the easier cylinders to pick. It looks like a very generic 5-pin Euro cylinder, so what could be so special about this lock, you might ask? Well, this lock has been especially designed to be very difficult to pick. At first glance, there are a few observations that I made. First of all, the length of the cylinder is quite unusual. Also, the fact that the cam is perfectly central when the key is removed. So this is not normally a feature in Euro cylinders. Normally, Euro cylinders have the cam ever so slightly offset, and that's to stop you from removing the cylinder without the key. I'm not exactly sure why Tesa have done that. I also don't know why there's a gap between the 3rd and 4th pins there, so if any of you have answers to any of these questions, I'd be glad to hear them down in the comments below. But what really makes this lock special are the pins inside it, and this is something I didn't know when I first attacked the lock. I assumed that this lock would maybe have some spool pins in it or something like that. And so I was actually oversetting the pins inside, because this lock has been especially designed to be very, very easy to overset the pins. And the way they do that is by using tapered driver pins, which means you'll set the pin, you'll hear a click, but the pin will still be jutting ever so slightly down past the shoreline, obviously preventing you from opening the lock. As well as that, I believe there are serrated key pins inside here, so that when you do overset a pin, it stays there. There's no way of returning the lock back to a pickable state without completely resetting everything. So it's a really cleverly designed lock. The way that you do pick this lock is very carefully. You have to feel for the binding pins. Once you hear a click, you have to leave the pin alone. You have to go and feel for another binder. You don't try pushing that pin any further once you hear the click. And what you'll find is that pins will actually rebind 1 or 2 times, because obviously you'll still be caught in that little that tiny little tapered part on the pin, so you'll have to go back and re-pick that in order to get a full set. You'll also probably notice the tension wrench turn a little bit, or the core turn just a little bit, and that kind of signifies that you're kind of in that full set. But really, it does teach you that you really mustn't assume what's inside a Euro cylinder, because I did, and I've learned my lesson, because this lock is certainly far from easy to pick. Alright, well, let's pop it in the vise and we'll see what we can do with it. Alright, well, I've got the lock clamped up in the vise now. The cam does rotate, so that's all good. I'm now going to try popping my tension wrench in the top here, because that seems to be a nice spot. Okay, and I'm going to go in with a fairly deep hook. This will just allow me to push those pins down without touching any of the other pins and oversetting them by mistake. Alright, so I'm going to go straight into the back. Let's see what we've got. So we got a click on 5 and a very slight turn on the tension wrench there. Click on 4. Nothing on 3, nothing on 2. Tiny click on 1. Tiny click on 2. I'm not going to push that any further. Okay. I think I have overset 2, because I pushed it just a little bit further than it was meant to go, and I didn't hear a good click, and that kind of confused me there, so I'm going to have to release tension and try again. So right to the back, click on 5, let's see, tiny click on 4, click on 1, tiny click on 2. I nudged 4 very, very slightly and felt a tiny turn. Tiny click on 3. 2 is bound solid. Tiny turn on 1. Tiny click on 3, I think that was. We'll try the last 2 pins. Nothing on 5, 4, 3, 2. Tiny click on 1, and we're open. So as you can see, there's a lot of really, really fine control and feedback coming from this lock. You really have to be paying a lot of attention to what you're doing. So hopefully that kind of made sense to you guys. I was really trying to put across what I was doing there. But hopefully you can understand the reason why I was having to repick those pins is because they were caught on a very tiny taper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to gut the lock, take it apart, and we'll have a look at the pins inside. Alright, well, I certainly won't be showing you how long it took me to take this circlip off. It probably took me as long to take the circlip off as it did to pick the lock. But anyway, here are the pins. Hopefully we can show you these in focus. As you can see, our key pins here have all got this small serration right on the top of them, and as I mentioned before, that is so that when you overset the pin stays above the shear line. There's no chance of that dropping back down unless you just reset the lock and start from the very beginning again. These pins here, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you this, but these are ever so slightly tapered on the end, and it's actually hard to see with the naked eye. But there's a very, very tiny bevel on each end, as you can see, and that is just enough so that once you've set the pin, and actually I'm noticing here we have a very slight lip there as well, which is going to add to that click when the pin is when the pin is half set, as it were. But you're still going to have this tiny little beveled portion just down here, which is going to be hanging on in the shear line there, and preventing you from opening the lock. The chambers here as well have a very they're very slightly rounded there, which is going to add to the whole thing. So it's such a nicely made lock. The tolerances there are just really, really impressive, and it's taught me a very important lesson that you should absolutely never assume what's inside even the most basic looking Euro cylinder, because there can be secrets hidden inside. And I do want to say a big thank you to Tallan Pick for sending this my way. I've really learnt a lot from it, and I definitely recommend you check out his channel. Most of his videos are in Spanish but do have subtitles, so he's got some really interesting videos over there that I do recommend you check out if you haven't done so already. Anyway, thank you so much guys for stopping by. I would really love to hear your feedback and your thoughts down below in the comments, and I hope to see you again very, very soon.